Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to the Langara Voice podcast. I'm your host, CALA Ali. Today we are going to be discussing the mental health of students amidst the Israel-Palestine war. As of October 7th, when the Israel-Palestine war was declared, some students at Langara and SFU feel their mental health is slowly declining. As anti-Semitism and Muslim hate crimes have peaked in recent years, some fear as the war goes on, these numbers will get higher. I spoke to two students about how they are currently feeling about their mental health during this time. First off, I spoke to David Schmill, a current Langara student and former president of the Langara Jewish Student Association. So to start off here with the recent war that is taking place, have you felt that your mental health has been affected in any ways?
To be honest, for the first little while, I tried to avoid it,
Right.
but it's kind of hard to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
So, it definitely has had a negative impact.
And do you have any friends here that are also feeling a bit overwhelmed by this?
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what are some of the things they've expressed to you?
Well, it's just honestly frustration because people don't really understand, a lot of people don't want to understand how it is to be a Jewish person with all this going on. It's especially in other campuses like SFU or Emily Carr, where, I recently learned there they don't even know what the definition of anti-Semitism is, right? Like the security there.
I asked David about Hillel B.C, a Jewish student organization that provides mental health assistance to students across many campuses in the Lower Mainland. He said the Jewish Student Association at Langara is an extension of Hillel B.C. On the Hillel Langara website, it says there are around 50 Jewish students at Langara. Read on the website that there is around, I believe, only 56 Jewish students at Langara. I don't know if that number is completely accurate, but do you feel that since it's a very small population here, that there is ways that your guys' mental health aren't necessarily being appropriately aided?
Yeah, honestly, with the whole 56 number,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where they got that number because
Okay.
it's hard to find Jewish people in any place.
Right.
Langara is already a small school.
Mm-hmm.
To find an even smaller minority in there,
Yeah.
that, it's not like you can really see somebody on the street and say that person's Jewish, right? You have to go out and you have to find them.
And what advice do you have for students that are feeling stressed in a time like this?
You're not alone. Even if you feel alone, you're not. There's always resources to help you. There's always people, family, friends, resources that will help you. And yeah, I guess it just boils down to you're not alone.
Also spoke to Samia Ishemwi, a Muslim student in her third year at SFU, about her mental health during this time. This is what she had to say. So to start off, I just want to ask you, how has your mental health been over the last few weeks since the war has started?
Increasingly bad. I feel like you start off hopeful, but as it's gone on, it's been 25 days now. It's been almost a month. And every time I open my phone, I'm seeing things that you shouldn't be able to see on your phone.
And would you say that seeing all that stuff on social media is the main thing that's making your mental health decline during this time?
I would say it's not just seeing it, it's more people's reaction to it.
Right, I see. And how have other members of your community been feeling during this time?
Also drained, and also their mental health is obviously not doing as well.
Samia said something that has stuck out to her during this time. It's that her Palestinian friends don't have time to mourn, as they need to advocate for themselves always. Is there anything that I didn't touch on here that you would like to add?
I would say, given the country we live in, given it's November, I feel like we should reflect on history, and I feel like we should be kind to our neighbors, because in reality, we're all related in some way, shape, or form. So you may not see or know a Palestinian, but you probably work with one or go to school with one, and just understand that their people are going through a lot right now.
I also spoke to Sarah Hamid Balma, the Director of Mental Health Promotion from the Canadian Mental Health Association, to gain expert thoughts on this subject. This is what she had to say.
Well, I think we know in our digital age that we have pretty constant access to a lot of bad news. And I mean, there's even a word for it, right? Doom scrolling.
Right.
So I think the first advice I would give is it's really important to know that what you're feeling, whatever that is right now, is valid and it's real. Fear, anxiety, despair, helplessness, anger can also be really common, and also just feeling numb or like fatigue because there's been a lot of bad news for a long time in the world. It's also important to know that if you've experienced war yourself, you or your family, or you've had a connection to that part of the world, or both, it can bring up a lot of painful memories and past traumas, and that might even be unexpected for you. And that many of us have friends and family here and abroad who are might be even more directly impacted or distressed, and supporting them can be difficult, and they might be leaning on you more.
I also spoke to Linda Lynn, a registered clinical counselor, and we talked about what advice she has for students who may be suffering with their mental health during this time.
I think it's really important to validate and tune into those feelings, because if you're a person of color, your ancestry and your lineage is probably affecting the way you're handling and carrying that emotional charge of the violence that's showing up in the world, right? And our bodies actually carry so much wisdom from our ancestors and from our environments as well growing up. And sometimes these experiences are intergenerational as well. So these burdens, your body is carrying burdens from, like, they say 7+ generation of knowledge, wisdom, but also pain and wounds. You can practice ways to be in solidarity with those who are being affected by this crisis. You can seek out resources, maybe even therapy, or just talk within your community and reflect and learn more about what you might be experiencing. And if you're grieving, just validate that they're supposed to be there. These emotions are supposed to be there, and don't push them aside. Lean into that discomfort, get curious. They play such an important role.
It was so great hearing from both the students and the experts I spoke to for this episode. I learned so much, and hopefully you all did too. Throughout my time working on this story, we received the news of what Langara professor Natalie Knight has said at a pro-Palestinian rally 2 weekends ago. I did a follow-up with Langara student David Schmill after the news broke to check on his mental health post-comments. Here's what he had to say.
It's definitely made me think about, like, what's going on at Langara more closely. If Natalie Knight's the only one, probably not, right? It's scary to think who else is there that has those views, right? People are allowed to have opinions, but you can't hide behind that and spout hateful things and celebrate the death of 1,400 people. That shouldn't be celebrated ever. I can't really think of a time where you should say that it's an amazing and brilliant thing that 1,400 people were killed. You know, not just soldiers, right? It was children, women, civilians.
Natalie Knight is currently on leave, and Langara has sent out an email to its students where it directs students to a whole bunch of mental health resources to get them help if needed during this time. Thank you for listening. This has been CALA Ali for the Langara Voice Podcast.